After 15 years as a family law attorney, I can tell you that the first 90 days of a divorce are the most important, and almost no one handles them correctly. Not because they're not smart, not because they don't care, but because nobody told them what was actually happening behind the scenes. I've watched people make decisions in those first 90 days that followed them for years. So I want to walk you through what I've actually seen from inside the divorce process. The first thing that's important to understand is that the divorce process asks you to make some of the biggest financial and legal decisions of your life while you're operating in one of the most emotionally compromised states that you've ever been in. The problem here is that everyone's judgment is genuinely impaired during that acute emotional stress, right? It isn't weakness, it's just biology. For a lot of people, they're finding out their spouse has cheated or has decided they don't love them anymore. And that's extremely emotionally traumatic, heartbreaking, frustrating, and it produces a lot of anger and other emotions that really just blocks people from thinking logically. The decisions made in the first month of the divorce process often can't be undone in month 6. I see this all the time. People acting out of fear or hurt will say things that they can't take back. They'll make allegations that force them to double down on later in the case. They'll say things bad about the other parent to the kids. And once that happens, you can't unring that bell. A lot of these things can cause tremendous complexity and difficulty when the legal process of divorce really gets underway. Because with a lot of these things, these divorce judges just don't play around. In that first month of divorce, I've watched people, smart, capable, intelligent people, agree to things that they absolutely regretted later, just because they were in an emotional survival mode. And then when they come to see me to try to fix it, often it can't be undone. In those situations, I've actually sat across the table from people who have come to me after they signed an agreement and said that they literally had no idea what they were agreeing to. That's the danger of acting when you're in that emotional fog, because that fog doesn't just affect the big decisions, it affects something most people don't even think about. And that's the financial clock that starts running the moment the divorce is filed. Now, here's something the divorce process doesn't advertise. From the moment papers are filed, a financial clock starts running, and most people have no idea. Different assets that get divided in the divorce get valued at different specific points in time. And those points in time usually revolve around the date of filing of the petition for divorce. Spending patterns of everyone during this period usually get scrutinized heavily by lawyers and judges. I've mentioned this in other videos that often people's spending gets really crazy when they're going through a divorce. That can get them in a lot of trouble with the courts. What someone does financially in that first 90 days of the divorce process can directly affect how their settlement goes, or if they have to go to court, what the judge is going to order or award them or take away from them. The people who come out of the divorce process in decent financial shape usually have a few different characteristics in common. They approach the process more logically rather than emotionally, and they make mature, calm decisions about financial matters, property, kids, and communication with the other spouse, rather than flying off the handle emotionally. These people generally also come into the process wanting to settle amicably rather than wanting to get their pound of flesh through the courts. Another trait that people who make it through the process in decent financial shape have in common is they're not trying to punish the other party, even if they were wronged, but instead they come to the table with this innate understanding that it's in their best interests and in their kids' best interests to set aside their emotional pain and just get through the process as quickly and calmly as they can. On the other hand, the people who get hurt going through those first 90 days of the divorce process also have similar patterns. By and large, they tend to make their decisions out of anger, emotion, or a desire to punish the other party for wronging them somehow, whether it was by cheating or suddenly announcing that they no longer love that person. And look, I get it. Most people come into the divorce process with months, if not years, of emotional trauma, baggage, fighting, just watching the marriage go downhill. A lot of people are emotionally at the end of their rope by the time they even start going into the divorce process. So for some guy to sit here and say, don't think emotionally, it's a tall order. But I think it really boils down to how badly a person wants to get through the divorce process in one piece, emotionally, financially, and keeping the kids from feeling the stress of that process as much as possible. Because what I've noticed over the years in my practice is that the people who really want that bad enough do have the ability to set aside the emotions and just get through that process as fast and as calmly as they can. I do want to add on this point that for a lot of people, the attorney that they hire is really going to make or break whether or not they can get through this first part of the divorce process calmly versus emotionally. Because at the end of the day, it's important to remember that attorneys usually get paid more the more people fight in their divorce. So finding a calm, honest attorney who's not going to guide you toward conflict, but try to keep you grounded and away from conflict is critical here. And out of all these mistakes that I see people make in the first 90 days of their divorce, are almost always made worse by one specific trap that people fall into without realizing it. And that is the communication trap. Text messages, emails, social posts. I can't tell you how many times I've watched someone's own words become the most damaging evidence in their case against them. The fact of the matter is that in most places, everything digital is potentially discoverable evidence that can be used against you. That is, if I put something out there on Facebook, if I'm sending scathing text messages, if I'm engaging in this almost like emotional revenge spending that a lot of people do in the divorce process. All of this stuff has a digital paper trail that can and often will come back to bite me in the end. One big problem for people that are in that first 90 days of the divorce process is they're making a lot of decisions and they're engaging in a lot of conducts before they understand the rules of the divorce game that they're in. The emotional state that I talked about in the first section, plus the communication trap, it's a dangerous combination that gets so many people into trouble. And bigger than the trouble, it just gets so many people locked into this bitter, high conflict divorce process that it can stretch on for months and even years in some cases, can totally traumatize them and the kids, and can absolutely financially devastate the marital estate. So that you guys get to a point where there's nothing left to even split by the time the attorneys are over, the revenge spending has happened, the paying for expenses for two different households in cases where they otherwise could have reached a quick, uncontested agreement in the beginning and stopped the financial bleeding almost before it started. It happens all the time where an opposing attorney can pull out a printed out text message in court from the first month of the divorce process that absolutely changes the whole direction of the case. So just remember, once you put something out there, once you act or say something in anger and it's in some sort of written digital format, you really can't take that back. I was in court once and a very wise judge once said to the parties in a high conflict case that they should treat every text, every email, every social post, every conversation that they have with their spouse as though the judge is sitting right there in the middle listening. And I think that's actually a really good rule to live by when you're going through this first 90 days of the divorce process. Okay, now that I have sufficiently scared everybody about the first 90 days of this process, I do want to calm everyone down because there's a lot happening that most people don't know about, but there are characteristics of the parties who are going to navigate this process well from the ones who don't. In 15 years, I've noticed a consistent pattern in the people who come out of divorce in the best possible situation. And it's not the one who had the best attorney. It's not who had the most money. It's who got informed before they got emotional. Understanding the ins and outs of the process well enough to make decisions from clarity instead of fear or anger is absolutely critical. One common theme that you're going to hear from me a lot across this channel and my other teachings is going to be that information for most people going into this process is a person's biggest asset, their biggest, best weapon going through this process. This is why education matters more than almost anything else in the first 90 days. Now, for most people, this information can come from attorneys. If you think about it, you hire an attorney and they provide you with very valuable information, right? Now, one difference about attorney information is attorneys are usually required to stand behind the information that they provide. And the attorney is generally going to execute on that information. But I understand not everybody is in a position to hire an attorney right now, or maybe some people can't afford an attorney, or some people just aren't ready to go out and start talking to attorneys. So there are other places to find information. There are scholarly articles, there are legal books, there are creators like me that are putting information out here. There are creators who make courses and write books and offer consulting or coaching, all things that I'm offering as well, that can really compress the time that it's going to take someone to gather this information. Because even though all this information is out there in a bunch of free places, someone who's in that first 90 days of the divorce process usually doesn't have the luxury of a lot of extra time to go out and collect the information they need to make well-educated decisions for their case. Because again, those first 90 days are going to move and feel really fast. And the topic of this video is actually really close to my heart because the issues that I've covered here are really the whole reason that I have created this channel and that I've decided to devote my time to providing this type of information to people going through this process. Because I've been a family law and divorce attorney for over 15 years now, and I'm just tired of seeing people get flattened emotionally, financially by this divorce process. I've said in other videos, so many people do not come out of the divorce process the same person that they were when they went in. It's absolutely heartbreaking as someone who cares about other people, and not to mention seeing kids suffer through this process. The reality is when it comes to the kids in the first 90 days of the divorce process, even the best efforts that a parent can put forth are not going to completely shield children from the stress and the trauma of this part of the divorce process. And that's why everything in this video is so critical. At the end of the day, if you're in the first 90 days right now, here's what I want you to take away from this. Slow down on the decisions that you can slow down on. Get as informed as possible before you make the ones that you can't. That's what this channel was created for. Also, comment on this video. Let me know if you have questions or any topics for other videos that you want to see. I read every comment. And while you're commenting, let me know. What's the one thing you wish someone had told you at the beginning of your divorce? If this video gave you something useful, hit the like button or heart it. It really helps me to get this information in front of more people who need it. If you want to keep going deeper inside divorce, I cover the financial, legal, and emotional side of divorce from the inside out. So subscribe or follow me so you won't miss what's coming next. And if you are in that first 90 days, I'm going to link to another video here that's going to be really important for your situation. The last thing I want to say is I have helped thousands of people through the divorce process over the last 15 years, and every case has its own fingerprint. Every case is different. But the one thing that I can tell you that is absolutely consistent across every case is the fact that it does get better. In time, people do heal. Things calm down. This is a temporary situation. This is not the rest of your life. Everything is going to be okay. All right. Lean on the people who have your back. Lean on the people who are giving you good, solid, non-emotional information. I mean, hey, reach out in the comments. Again, I read every comment. I'm here for you. There are people who are here for you. It's going to be okay. I'll see you guys in the next one.